Greetings, YouTube. When Uber was first introduced, the whole idea of a shared economy model, of this bold idea of unstabilizing, shaking up the whole taxi industry, sort of sounded interesting to me. And I liken my reaction to Uber's presence kind of like how I reacted when I was first introduced to the concepts of libertarianism when I was but a wee lad in my early 20s. I thought they were really cool for about 4 months. And then I smartened up and realized that libertarian political system cannot work, is nothing but a tool of the 1% and a tool of white supremacy. So there's a reason that the rich people and the white supremacists love libertarian political values and financial policies. They're incredibly unbalanced and crazy. So I moved away from that. But I did, for that brief period of time, that little 4-month window, thought it was awesome. Well, that was the same thing with Uber. For that brief period of time, I thought Uber was pretty awesome. Then eventually I moved into the zone, well, they're no worse than the taxis. And now I've come to realize that I was wrong. That they are worse than taxi companies. Now, I've never really been a big fan of taxis. I've always considered taxis somewhat predatory in and of themselves. And I say this as a person who, my stepbrother used to own his own taxi company. Now he does airport drives. Smaller business. He still likes it. Makes a lot of money. He's happy. But now I've come to realize the danger of Uber. Because they're not just some kind of let's unsettle the whole process. No. What they are is an organization that its purpose is to circumvent regulation. Regulation of workers' rights, regulations of consumer rights. And that's the reason that the headline of this video is Death to Uber. Because we don't need them. They're treating their workers like crap, and they're being discriminatory both to the workers and to their customers. Why? Well, if you're a taxi company and you go and do something discriminatory, you're going to get sued. The company itself will get sued. But if you're just an Uber driver, you're just some random schmuck on the street driving for them. Uber has a cutout. Uber can say, well, it wasn't our policy. They're not really our employee. So if they've done something discriminatory, well, it's on them. What a nice dodge. Because if a driver shows up and there's a person in a wheelchair and they don't want to deal with it, they can take off. If they pull up and there's a black person standing on waiting for a ride and they don't like it, they can take off. I have no confirmation on this, but I have also heard that there is the potential that the Uber process also, Uber and Lyft, there is similar ideas as Uber, can in fact be hacked and the data can be leaked to people with less than honest and pleasant ideas in mind. I've heard of a case of a woman waiting for a ride. A ride showed up. The driver was supposed to be a woman in her 30s. The driver was a guy in his 40s, knew her name, and told her to get in he was her ride. She didn't, because she didn't think it was right. That wasn't the person that was supposed to pick her up. Then the ride actually showed up at the appropriate time. She got in the correct car. The other guy followed them for a while before taking off. So we could be looking at a situation where the Uber or Lyft systems are being manipulated by people for nefarious purposes. Maybe they're just scalping. Maybe they're in there sniping a ride. Who knows? Or they could be doing something else. You're not going to have that problem when you call up a taxi company. You're also going to be able to sue a company. You're going to be able to have some workers' rights because the company has been established. Whereas Uber can just say, oh, they're not really our drivers. So if we discriminate against those people as our employees, it's completely acceptable. Wrong. So I'm going to link to an article about a lawyer that's involved in has been involved in lawsuits about workers' rights in the past, and now is involved with Uber, and obviously probably Lyft eventually, if they aren't already. So these models, Lyft and Uber, are very similar. So I'll have nothing to do with these companies. Not that I've ever called a taxi in my entire life. I didn't have a driver's license until I was 36. I walked a lot. Um, so, once again, these kinds of models fall into the same category, into my mind, as libertarianism. They undermine worker rights, and they endorse discrimination. So while they may sound interesting at first, they are inherently dangerous to us as a society. They're dangerous to us as consumers. They're dangerous to us as employees, as workers. People before profits. Discrimination laws are there for a reason. And we need to make sure that we take care of each other, that we, the people, care for each other, and make sure that there are not capitalists coming in trying to destabilize a system that works. It's not perfect, but at least it is less likely to harm workers and consumers. The Uber Lyft model is intended from the get-go to do harm.